Alright, let's start the videos. Needless to say, since I missed one on Thursday, I'll be doing two today. So let's start with the first. Informing subordinates. Now, when I talk about this, yes, it does apply to the military, and it's what made me think of this. It's not exclusive to that. In truth, any time you have any level of command, there are naturally leaders and subordinates, those who follow the orders of those above them. But with that comes certain responsibilities and an important duty. See, when it comes to leadership, control of information is excessively important. Certain information must be delivered to subordinates, while other information will often need to be withheld for purposes of maintaining order, minimizing confusion, or just ensuring leaks don't occur. For example, business secrets do need to be withheld from the everyday person unless it is directly them responsible for handling them, like a specific design. Certainly, with patents you can get a good idea, but when it comes down to it, you still need to have some restraints so that certain things don't leak out. That's why leaking business secrets is a very big taboo in the business world, and it's also the case in the case of the medical field, because, for example, you do not want to tell patients of something that will just worry them or their family before a surgery that doesn't matter otherwise. For example, if there's a small chance of an issue should X thing occur, but X thing is really unlikely, it's probably not best to make people stop worrying about the doomsday scenario where that's the case. Or in the case of someone who does die, you want to make sure it doesn't get too bad with the description, because people generally panic when they lose a life and definitely are not in the best state of mind. You don't want to make that worse. And so some information will likely be withheld for just general purposes to ensure things don't go too screwy. But with this comes a responsibility to inform subordinates under you their roles and to ensure those under them understand what they have been assigned. For example, let's take a large business. Let's say you have an R&D department, a marketing department, and just general manufacturing department. Okay? You're going to want to inform the person in charge of marketing, here's what the product is and here's what its features are supposed to be, and to start preparing a plan to market it to the masses. Get advertising, get contacts ready to, say, have certain other businesses buy it, depending on what it is, etc. You want to get the R&D guys to make sure they can actually design it and to give a rough estimate for how much it's actually going to cost if they haven't already. And for the people making the product itself, or in certain cases importing the parts, you want to make sure that it goes smoothly with quality control for the imports as well as the manufacturing itself. And so each of these needs to understand what their role is, and simultaneously those who are actually doing the manufacturing, marketing, and R&D, outside of just those in charge of the departments, need to understand what they're doing. Let's face it, with this example where there's a new product, how it's manufactured is going to be important, and so the individual people on the assembly line need to know what they're doing. The individual marketers need to know what it looks like so they can give a rough idea to potential advertisers or other people they're going to work with on how they're going to sell it. And the R&D people, fairly obvious, just like maintenance, or in the case of this manufacturing, what they need to do, but they still need to be informed of the exacts so that they don't, for example, research into something that isn't relevant or invest and try something that isn't related to the specs needed. Without approval, of course. If they have approval, that's another matter. But all of this needs to be informed. See, when it comes down to it, everyone needs to know their role in a project. Division of labor isn't just a suggestion. It's a very important tool to ensure that something gets done, because it allows specialization and efficiency to grow over time, especially for longer-term projects. But with that, naturally comes specific instructions, and so you need to make sure the instructions get to the people who have to follow them, while simultaneously restraining them from knowing everything else. For one, if one person decides to leak to competition, that's a big issue. And two, it gets far more confusing when everyone has to know everything. If everyone can be shuffled around, sure, that has its usefulness, especially if you lose a lot of people from one specific area, but it also has major disadvantages. Most notably, it confuses people and makes them less efficient at their roles since they have to split their attention between multiple things, which isn't a good sign for most people because it means they're less good at what they are assigned. And in such cases like the military, where there is a chain of command, with some lesser leaders acting as middle managers handling smaller groups, higher ups still hold a responsibility to inform lower ranking individuals of what they are doing, with lesser officers providing clarification. So, using the example of the business, you have the CEOs and all those people who make the initial idea, and they do have to inform the people in the specific departments, hey, here's the new project, here's what you're doing. But they also have to inform the lesser officers of the specific things they're doing so that they understand, okay, R&D's role is this, marketing's role is this, manufacturing's role is this, etc., so they know their purpose. And so when lower ranking members who are actually doing some of the hands-on stuff ask, hey, what are we doing? They can be informed by the lower ranking individuals who have them as subordinates and say, here's what we're doing for our part as R&D or marketing or whatever. And of course, briefing is oftentimes good just to make sure that everyone's on the same page in case you're worried that people won't ask questions, which is still a very real and understandable concern. But what that means fundamentally for an organization is that the chain of command needs to have an idea of what they're doing. Sometimes it's often portrayed with certain individuals where they'll hide a bunch of things from those around them to try to keep up a secret and to preserve a plan. There are issues with that for several reasons, and it just generally makes things worse. See, any efforts to hide the plan that you want to, actually act on as a leader from subordinates will not assist with the end goals, but will rather just create tension and worsen the results achieved in the organization. Because people won't trust you. Why would they trust you if you're not giving them the information needed to get things done? And especially with lesser ranking commanders, that's what they are in the military, or for example, like a head of a department in industry, those people need to understand what their role is because they have a specific function. The people in manufacturing handle production. They make things. The marketers market. R&D researches and develops new products or new techniques. That's what they do. If they can't do those things or act in accordance with instructions, then they're basically frozen. And if things go wrong in your plan, which, let's face it, things go wrong, that's how life is, then suddenly, how are the people in the specific departments or the specific officers supposed to act? Junior officers or specific department heads need to know the end goals so that when things go wrong, they can swivel, adjust as necessary, and make sure to properly further the end goal. If they can't do that, then everyone's stuck. There can be no trust if a commander is not willing to give it to the people, and so the people, necessarily, must be able to rely on the commander. And so, with that, you must be able to inform people of your plans. You may be worried, of course, about people leaking things, which is fair, and sometimes you do have situations where certain things are classified or top secret, depending on what you are. The military has this all the time, especially certain things can't be just leaked out. But in such cases, you still have to actively inform subordinates of what the goal is and how you're going to achieve it. Specifically, their role in it. For example, with the Manhattan Project, there were people who had to deliver the enriched uranium. What they needed to know, as drivers, was, you're delivering something to this point, here's what you're doing, take turns to make sure that you can constantly go there and arrive on time. That's what they needed to know to achieve the mission. They knew their end goal, get to point B from point A, and they knew how to get there, driving, switching as necessary to keep it constantly in motion so that they actually arrived on time. You still need to inform people of what they're doing, even if it's only just informing them of the end goal of their part. You can't just keep everyone in the dark. That's not how you can properly keep people, working properly with proper morale and willingness to continue. You have to inform people. And so, you must necessarily have to keep an open line of communication. The failure to do so is what results in mutinies, rebellions, strikes, and other issues, because people, when they don't know what the freak they are doing, default to basically just destroying what they can. Why? Because they can't trust you to do things right, so they're going to do things their own way. And as it happens, their own way will clash with yours, almost certainly, and so it will not end well for the system set up. It doesn't go too well, plain and simple. So you gotta keep them informed and in the loop. You don't have to tell them everything. Certain things do need to be withheld. As stated, there are times where you can't just tell everyone everything, or any particular person a certain piece of information. Operational security is a thing, especially for the military and police. Secrets are a factor that must be considered. Businesses know this especially. Trade secrets are a real thing that people protect very rigorously. And so, with that, you still have a natural withholding of information. You're never going to get the perfect truth all the time because people will still withhold things, keep things close to their chest. But they still have to have things away from their chest to some extent. They still have to be able to inform you of your role in it if you are under them, or to inform someone else of their part in the plan. Subordinates need to know what they're doing. If they can't, then things will not go well, they won't trust you, and actions will be taken that will escalate poorly. You always have to keep information flowing. What information, though? That is the question. And when you're informing subordinates, you need to know what that is. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.